Hello everybody, my name is Joanna if you're new here, and today I'm going to talk about 15 books that I want to get to in 2023. And so this list is comprised of mostly standalones. There are a couple of exceptions to that on this list, which I'll explain, but I do have a separate video talking about my series TBR for 2023, and I know that this is not an original idea, but I've been really enjoying, again, watching people's videos of standalones they want to read in 2023. So I do have quite a few on this list, and I love what Sarah said in her video like this of 23 books that she wants to read in 2023, which is that there always has to be room for other books to pop up on your radar, for you to pick up on a whim, and so this is a highly aspirational list. Those 6 of these are going to be priorities for me. So I do plan to at least get to 6 of them, and then the rest I just hope I can insert at some point along the way. So we'll see how I do. But the first priority on this list is going to be Knight of Knives by Ian C. Esselmont. I wanted to get to this by the end of this year, by the end of 2022, and it just didn't happen. But I know I will enjoy this. I'm pretty sure I will, and I now own it. I received it as a gift for Christmas, and so I'm very much looking forward to finally getting to Knight of Knives. I know people have asked me about this for a long while. And next on the list that is a definite priority, because I'm part of a read-along for it, is Shogun by James Clavell. And so that one I probably will prioritize first because we're starting in January, and I'm going to be joining along with Alan from the Library of Alexandria, Alex from Tall Guy Reads, Theo from Rekindled Reader, and Tori from Tori Talks. And we're going to be dividing this mammoth book into 3 sections and read 1 section per month. I just ordered my book today, so I hope to get to that by January. And I'm excited to talk about that with those friends because I've just heard so much praise for this book. In fact, every time I mention it on my channel, I just receive several comments of people saying, I want to reread that book. I want to reread that book. So it sounds like it is so good that people want to reread it. Both my parents read that book many years ago, loved it. They still have high praise for it even today. So it left a mark on them. And I just know I'm going to love it. And I really look forward to discussing that again with those friends. So next on the list is Butcher's Crossing, and this is by John Williams, and this is his Western book. So I read Augustus and Stoner in 2023 and loved it. I loved both books so much. John Williams has already become a favorite author just based on those 2 books, and I found in 2022 that I happen to love Western books, at least so far, and I didn't put Lonesome Dove on my list this year, but I do want to read that someday too. But I do want to prioritize Butcher's Crossing because after reading Stoner and Augustus, I decided I definitely need to get to Butcher's Crossing, and Alan and I are going to buddy read that at some point. If it's by John Williams and it's a Western, chances are I will love it. Another book I want to get to in 2023 is All the Pretty Horses by Cormac McCarthy. Now I understand this is part of a trilogy, and I didn't realize that when I put that on my list, but I think this will be my next Cormac McCarthy book. I read No Country for Old Men about 11-12 years ago, and I didn't love it on the level I had hoped. And I do wonder if it was where my reading taste was at the time, if I had the wrong expectations. So I do wonder if rereading it would produce different results now. And I did read recently Blood Meridian, which I finished on Christmas Day, and I loved it. I was so shocked how much I loved it. I picked this up thanks to Jimmy from the Fantasy Network and read it slowly alongside him for his reread of the book, and it was so wonderful and helpful to share thoughts along the way. So I think that that's the way to consume McCarthy, at least Blood Meridian for sure. And so I really look forward to reading more from him in 2023, and I do think that All the Pretty Horses will be my next choice. And next on the list is Lord of Light by Zelazny. And so this one was gifted to me from Matt on Books, a good friend of mine, and wonderful channel. He did a fantastic review of this book and talked about the Buddhist influence in here. And I understand also you don't have to be a Buddhist to appreciate it, but it apparently has a very unique structure, does some really interesting things regarding gods or people becoming gods, and some interesting fictional descriptions of enlightenment. And I want to see what that's about in this book. So I am so excited to get to this, and I'm going to be buddy reading this with Philip Chase because Matt also gifted that book to Philip, and I decided I'd go ahead and line up with Philip on this book. So I'm excited about that. And as far as the next book here I'm going to prioritize is The Black God's Drum. This is by Pete Jelly Clark. And I've been wanting to read this book for a long time, ever since I saw Andy Smith talk about it on his channel. He gave a great review, loved the book. It's under 100 pages. There's no reason why I shouldn't have read it by now, but I haven't, and I will prioritize it in 2023 because it's so short. And this one is an Afrofuturistic book, from what I understand on the back, and it has to do with a young teen on the streets of New Orleans who is scraping by, and something about airships. So I'm curious to see where this goes, and I understand this author is very talented, and I understand this author is very talented for novellas. So I will get to this in 2023. And I think that's about it as far as books I will prioritize. But now for the rest of my short list of books I would love to get to if possible, unless other ones come up on my radar, and they probably will. But the first one that came to mind is The Lions of Al Rassan. And so this is by Guy Gavriel Kay. And I understand from Jake Bishop, who is pretty much the expert on Guy Gavriel Kay here on this corner of BookTube, that this is an excellent book for starting your Guy Gavriel Kay journey. And I look forward to reading this. I don't really know a lot about the premise, but I know that Guy Gavriel Kay is known for having very historical fiction heavy fantasy. And so I want to see what this is about. And I think this will be my first read based on Jake's recommendation. And then next on my list is The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin. And so I have not read anything by Ursula K. Le Guin yet. And it's kind of funny because I know Alex from Tall Guy Reads, he did his video of a similar nature and said the same thing, that he hasn't read anything by Ursula K. Le Guin, and this is the book he also wants to start with. And I know Alan and I talked about possibly lining up on a buddy read for this, and maybe I'll see if Alex wants to join too, but I really want to get to this at some point because I know this made the top 10 list on Fit to Be Read's 210 sci-fi of all time video. And so that has to say something. It has to say something that made it that high on that list of sci-fi books. So I want to see what Ursula K. Le Guin has to offer as a sci-fi writer. And I want to start here because it's a standalone. I do want to read the Earthsea trilogy or quartet. Is it a quartet? I do want to read the Earthsea books at some point and actually do own those. My husband has those on his shelf, but I just can't get to it right now. Next up, I have The Old Man and the Sea, another one that's been on my shelf forever. And this one is by Hemingway. I've never read from Hemingway. I don't know. I'm so ill-read when it comes to classics. I had a terrible education. What can I say? But I know that this is a beloved book. My mother adores this book and says it's an excellent study in good prose. And my mother, by the way, she was an English teacher. She has a degree in English literature. She actually had my siblings and I purchase this book a long while back, like years and years ago, and we were going to buddy read it together as a family, and it just never worked out. We never got it organized, and I think my mom wanted to actually put together a lesson plan and everything, and we just never did it. But I think I'm going to go ahead and just read it. Sorry, Mom. Another book I want to get to in 2023 is Who Fears Death by Nnedi Okorafor. This author is known mostly for her Binti series, but this particular book caught my attention when I saw a review on Fit to Be Read. And so Okorafor is a Nigerian-American author. Who Fears Death is an Afrofuturism book, and it's in a desert setting It's kind of a blend between sci-fi and fantasy from what I understand. I'm very curious, especially as this deals with issues of race and ethnicity and gender, and I just have heard great things about this author overall. So that is one I would love to get to. I wanted to get to that one this last year and it hasn't happened yet, but I think that would be a great introduction for me to Okorafor. Another one on my list is Grendel, and this one is by John Gardner. And this particular book has also been on my shelf for a while, and I even talked with Philip Chase a long while back about having a discussion with him about it at some point, because I know that this is based on, obviously, the monster in Beowulf. And I reread Beowulf. I read Beowulf in high school, and then I reread it a couple of years ago, and I loved it. I loved it so much. I might even reread it again, I don't know, in preparation for this at some point. But I've heard fantastic things about this book and about John Gardner. I know that Stephen Erickson talks about John Gardner all the time. And so John Gardner wrote books on writing, and he obviously did incredible work with this book because it's very well known. He is now passed on, I believe, but this particular book is about humanizing, I think, this monster. I am not 100% sure on all the details, but I am excited for this book. And again, it's been on my shelf forever. One book I will get to at some point in my life, if not in 2023, but I will get to it, is Hyperion by Dan Simmons. Another book that's been on my shelf forever. And the only reason I put this one off is because I understand from my friend Jonathan from Words in Time that it's best to read this back to back with the sequel. But then I've heard other friends say, no, you don't have to do that. You can just read it as a standalone or just wait between books. But I might just read this as a standalone in 2023 if I get a chance. I know it's based on the Canterbury Tales, and I haven't read that. Maybe I'll read that first at some point. I don't know. But I just know I'm going to love this book. I have no doubt I will love this book because it has time travel. It has interesting themes. Everybody loves this book. Everything I've heard about it just sounds like something I would adore. I don't know. I'm excited to get to it though at some point. I do have it on my shelf, and I even have the audiobook too, so I may even immersion read it, who knows. But this is another one that's a long-standing book I'd love to get to. I only have 3 more books on this list, and one I actually have a physical copy of, and that's The Counselor, and that's by E.J. Beaton. I've heard such phenomenal praise for this. The person who really got me excited about this was Matt from Matt on Books. When I was on his discussion series with Tori and with Jordan, he really built up the praise of this book, talking about the excellent gender representation in it. I know he did a fantastic review of the book as well. And so that's what made me want to pick it up. But the first person actually I heard about this book from was Klaus the Contradictorian. I haven't seen him as active lately on BookTube, but he loved this book. I remember him talking about the prose being excellent. So I have high confidence I will love it. I think the only reason it's not a priority for me in 2023 is this is not a standalone. It is a duology, and we don't know exactly when this author is going to come out with that second book, but I do intend to read it at some point. I have 2 more I want to get to. Both are classics. Now, there are so many classics I want to read. I could probably do a whole separate video on classics I want to read. I just have a feeling there wouldn't be a lot of interest in hearing about that, especially because I don't usually prioritize classical literature, but I do want to insert more into my reading life. And 2 that are coming up for me on my radar right now are Steinbeck's East of Eden, and the second one is Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. And so I know with Their Eyes Were Watching God, this has come with so much high praise from people I trust, like Evie from She Was Only Evie loves this book, loves everything by Zora Neale Hurston. So I want to know what this is about, and I know Zora Neale Hurston is very well known as being an incredible writer, and so this is one I really want to get into. And with the Steinbeck book, that one is one that I just have heard nothing but high praise for. So I think that one might be one of those more accessible classic books that I could get into without much trouble. So that's one that I also want to put on my TBR as a potential. So that's it for now. Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I would love to hear from you, and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.